All right, so this is a normal curve. It shows how test scores would fall if a particular test was given to every single child at the same age, same grade level, or whatever the population you're looking at is. So with your child, we're looking at age level. So most scores are going to fall in the middle of the curve. See how it's higher here? This is the mean or the average test score. Fewer students are going to get extremely high scores or extremely low scores, which is why the line is lower towards each end.
Okay.
All right, so when we're looking at your child's score and we're comparing it to the mean or the average, we can use this diagram to help figure out how your child is truly performing. So we use something called standard deviation to show how many people typically get scores in a range above or below the mean score. So you'll see here about 68% of children score within this range on the curve, all right, in between one standard deviation above and one standard deviation below.
Okay.
All right. If their score is higher than the mean, we say that they're considered to be within one standard deviation above the mean. If their score in this range is lower than the mean score, then they're considered to be within one standard deviation below the mean. Scores in this range are super common, and they're generally not a major cause for concern. But if we were going to look at a larger range, like 2 standard deviations above and below the mean,
Sure.
we'll see that about 95% of scores fall between those two ranges. So we start to become concerned when the student score falls more than 2 standard deviations below the mean score. So that would be over in this area, okay?
Okay.
All right.
Sure.
So let's take a look at an example with an IQ test. So on an IQ test, the mean or average score is usually 100.
Mm-hmm.
And then a standard deviation is 15. So that means we would add 15 points for each standard deviation above the mean, and we would subtract 15 points for each standard deviation below the mean. Students who score 70 or below on an IQ test, or at least 2 standard deviations below the mean, they meet the criteria for intellectual disability. Now, standard deviation can be useful for figuring out how a child performed compared to the average scores, but if we wanted to see how they did compared to everyone who took the test, we can use something called percentile ranks. Those are these numbers down here. Okay. So percentile ranks, they show how many other students taking the test scored as well or lower than your child's. And if we go back to our first chart, we can look at the average score of 100, and we can see that this corresponds to a percentile rank of 50. So that means that 50% of students who took the same test got the same or lower score, and 50% got a higher score.
Okay.
If we were to look here, see 90, that's 90%, that would mean that 90% of students who took the same test got the same or lower score, and only 10% got a higher score. Do you have any questions?
No, that makes sense.
Okay.